Welcome to the one and only Tim Tszyu.
Hey guys, how we doing? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, July 22nd, 2024, and what a crazy week it's been, both in boxing and just in the world. Of course, we sat here last week, the day after the assassination attempt of Donald Trump, and already this week, Joe Biden has dropped out of the race. It looks like Kamala Harris will be the she's the vice president. It looks like she will be the opponent for Donald Trump coming up. So there's that. And you might be saying, well, what's that got to do with Australia? Well, it has a lot to do with Australia, because what happens in America tends to have massive repercussions for the rest of the Western world. But on a boxing front, massive fight night on Saturday night with Ibi Bella beating Jalen Tate in the Premier Boxing Series up on the Gold Coast. We had Junto Nakatani. Not quite sure what to make of that one. Everyone, look, we'll go over that, of course. No doubt a few of you will bring it up. There's a few in the chat, which is great. I'll get to your comments as we go. As usual, the first few comments are all over the place, but I'll try and put them in order. What else was it? And then, of course, well, if you do want to discuss it, we had Jake Paul yesterday. Just on Jake Paul, I did actually happen to watch the fight. Now, I'll tell you the story before everyone says, well, hang on, you said you'd never watch him. Well, I had no intentions of watching him. And let's just say I had access to a stream that someone sent me. And I went, well, I'm in between. Well, it might have been just before the football come on. I had nothing to do, so I thought I'd done all my chores for the day. So I thought, all right, I'll sit down and watch it. Well, I haven't really seen a lot of Jake probably since his early days, if anything, to be honest. And I did watch the fight. Look, I'll say, look, he's maybe improved slightly. So maybe he might have even cracked the top 75 or 80 fighters in the world in that division. Maybe. The opponent, I had no idea who he was. What was his name? Mike Perry. Apparently he's a bare knuckle fighter. I don't follow that at all. I did see a lot of the comments today from Conor McGregor, and a few other YouTubers were covering it. So that was pretty entertaining. Got a little bit more of an idea who he was. Did actually see that he was about 30 pound lighter than Jake Paul. So look, end of the day, it was a circus, but geez, they had 18,000 people there. Yes, 18,000 people there. Probably massive pay-per-views, all that sort of stuff. So, who's the smart one here? I don't know. I want to talk about, and I'm sure it's got to be in the comments there somewhere. I'll go through them, as I said. But the fights on Saturday night, a little bit of a mixed bag. The main event, one of the best fights I've seen at domestic level. But on the flip side, probably the worst fight I've ever seen take place. Well, I won't say it's the worst fight ever to take place on these shores, but it is the worst opponent that's ever been brought to Australian shores in a fight of any significance whatsoever. And I'm referring to the female fight, and I'll get onto that as well. I'll explain my points. I'm sure there's some of you in the chat that have covered it as well. But before we get into it, I'll just say one word: horrific. Absolutely horrific. Well, that's two words. It was, I'm still trying to get my head around what I saw on Saturday night. No disrespect to Shay Canel, by the way. No disrespect to her. But I'm sure we will cover it. Let's get into a few comments. As I said, it looks like old Big J's in there. Old mate Big J's in there a little bit. So we'll try and sort out the order here. All right. We'll start with this one. Hey, mate, big weekend on Shay Canel. Well, there you go, straight off the bat. If you look at Fennick's record, when he won his IBF title, his opponent had a record of 8-1-1 at the time of the fight and beat an opponent who was 3-7-1 to win that title. So if you're not quite across this, There was a little bit made of the fact that Shay Canel was about to break Jeff Fennick's record. Now, Jeff Fennick, from memory, I think had 7 fights or won the world title in his 7th fight. Shay Canel was having her 5th fight. First of all, I don't think we can even begin to compare males to females because and not just male, female, but the weights. And I think, excuse the pun here, Big J, but our old mate D-Style in the States actually covered this on his show. I think it was yesterday. He did a 25, 30-minute video. He must have seen the footage. He was absolutely horrified as well and did a standalone video on it. That's how horrified he was. But as I said, I don't think you can compare male versus female. One is and I'll get to Shingaki's record there. That was the fighter he beat for the title. But first of all, I don't think we can compare males to females. But it's the weight. And D-Style went over it on the weekend. I think in the 160, no, this was not 160, 175-pound division. There might have been 21 fighters, and maybe 11 or 12 of them actually had a winning record. And this girl actually had a winning record, which is even more scary. But look, all due respect to Shay Canel, she prepared. She went into the fight willing to fight anyone to get that belt. So, again, credit to her, full respect to her. But the opponent, if you didn't see it, Angie Arrocha was her name, from Colombia. She was about a foot shorter than Shay. She was vastly overweight to the point where her stomach was actually spilling out of the bottom of her singlet or top, whatever you might want to call it. She was absolutely gassed after a round. The punches she threw, I think I had women that did boxercise back when I had my gym about 5 or 6 years ago that did boxercise that could throw punches 10 times better than that, and they were just there doing a boxercise class. I think as much as, and we'll get to the rest of the card as we go because it was a great card apart from this. So full credit again to Shay for having that WBA belt around her waist, but I'm not going to, compare it to Jeff Fennick in any way, but also a title of legitimacy. Is that a word? Legitimacy anyway, Big J, because there's a dozen fighters in the world, by the way, not just in the States or here or whatever, but in the world. 4 champions in the division, and there's only a dozen fighters that have got winning records. So we'll put them all in anyway. There's 21 fighters, 4 world titles, regional belts. I'm sure there's interim belts, silver belts, east-west belts, you name it. They're all in there, and there's literally 21 fighters. You've got a 1 in 5 chance of winning a world title. Compare that to the males who have, I think he said there might have been 1,700 or something, and probably 12 or 1,300 of those would have winning records. So I'm not trying to disparage Shay there, Big J, but I'm certainly not going to stand up and applaud and put her in the same category as Lionel Rose, Johnny Famechon, Jeff Fennick, put it that way. But all the best to her. Let's just hope she does get a fight with maybe a Desley Robinson. I think that'll be a great fight. There has been talk, I think afterwards she might have called out Clarissa Shields. Massive step. I would hope that in behind closed doors, they would maybe wind that back because she's nowhere near ready for Clarissa. But we've got another female world champion or another Australian world champion. She's a female. We now have 3 female world champions. So, again, good on. We have 2 male world champions. So, we've got 5. We've got some more fights coming up. I won't get too behind here, guys. But, look, again, I'll say it before I move on. By no means or way am I trying to discredit Shay Canel. She turned up in shape, ready to fight anybody. But that opponent, Angie Arrocha, should not have been allowed in a 4-rounder with another, was he 44 years old, whatever. Shouldn't have been in even a 4-rounder against some other mum at the local YMCA or gym boxercise circuit. It was embarrassing. Embarrassing for women's boxing. I think embarrassing for Australian boxing and just embarrassing for boxing in general. If you ask me, it's just my opinion. I'm sure there might be a bit of clapback from people out there that say, hey, don't disparage on Shay. And I'm not. But that opponent, I don't know where they found her. I did see or hear somewhere that they had to really petition the WBA hard to get her approved. And you got to reap what you sow, and I'm a massive fan of Ace Boxing, but that fight really almost made me fall off my chair. And I didn't like it, but I couldn't help myself but just actually laugh at the situation. And I hate doing that because I respect anyone that gets in the ring. But geez, it's all I could do. I had no words whatsoever. Let's keep going there, guys. Sorry about that. I've just harped on about that a bit too long. Well, what do you say, Big J? I've seen footage of Angie Rocha from years ago. Much more legit back then. This was obviously her retirement fight. Still that image of her guts hanging over her shorts is forever in my brain. Well, 100%, Big J. And then the fact that she quit after 3 2-minute rounds, by the way. She didn't get stopped. She didn't get knocked out. She quit in her corner after the 3rd 2-minute round because she was absolutely exhausted. And I don't give a shit whether it's a retirement fight. I don't give a shit whether everyone petitioned to the WBA about it. That fight should not have taken place on a major fight. And yes, it was a free card. I get that. But Ace Boxing have never put a foot wrong as far as I'm concerned. I've seen so many of their fight cards. I just would have maybe thought if there was an untelevised maybe portion of the card, this should have been the fight on that card. It wasn't good. But anyway, it is what it is. Shay's got a belt and all the best for her. Let's just hope now she's got the belt. She now does, and I will give her full credit, by the way, of calling out Clarissa Shields. I still stand by it's way too early for her, but hey, good on her. Just like Sam Goodman calling out Inouye and Liam Paro calling out everyone. Cambosis, of course, calling out anyone and everyone. He'll fight anybody, George. That's what we love about him. Maloney's, Jai, all of them put her in that category. It's one thing I love about all the Aussie fighters, but it still can't take away from the fact that that fight was embarrassing on so many fronts. So we'll move on. Still with Big J. Also appreciate the support from yourself and Damien. I doubt he'll be on a No Limit Christmas card list after his comments. What was he going on about? He got stuck right into No Limit, didn't he? And I pulled up a little bit on the No Limit thing, and I did. I've had a couple of comments, not serious comments, but a few people say, geez, you're a bit harsh on No Limit sometimes, and maybe I am, but I will stand by that. I'll call out, as I just did then with the Ace Boxing thing. I love what Ace Boxing do, but again, I'll stand by that comment. And No Limit, and even though I've said some derogatory things about No Limit, I'll still give them the props in that they have really really put Aussie boxing back into the stratosphere, the boxing stratosphere, with not only the fights they've done here, but also getting Tim Tszyu, Liam Wilson, potentially Sam Goodman, all their fighters, big fights. So I'll give them their props where due, but I'll also have a crack at them where it's due as well. So, but I can't remember the exact comments there, Big J, but I remember Damien didn't hold back. All right, a few more. What do we got there? We'll just got one more from you, Big J, and then we'll move on to someone else. No Limit rushed Tim's announcement. Don't see how announcing a date without an opponent or venue is a good idea. And that's what I thought too, Big J. And I probably, again, didn't go as hard as I would most normally do it, because I did have a couple of people saying I was being a little bit harsh, and, you know, I should be taking notice of the good things they're doing and not always focusing on the bad things. And that's cool. Maybe that's the case. I'll listen to what anyone tells me, as long as it's done respectfully. But I will say here, Big J, I thought exactly the same thing. I did see the announcement before. There was the social media grab of Tim and Nikita. Big fight announcements tomorrow. Make sure you tune in. So, of course, like I'm sure a lot of you out there, I tuned in. And all it was, apart from Nikita's fight with Colin Mazzuti, which we all knew was going to happen, it was Tim's back on September 22. Opponent, venue, all the rest of it, all the details to be announced shortly. Now, you're right. I don't. You probably make a case you don't see the point of announcing it, but at the end of the day, people are hanging on for news of Tim Tszyu. So I think No Limit actually in this case handled it pretty well. Big J, they put the carrot out there. They got us all to tune in because we're all just craving to see what Tim's done next, and I think they actually did it well to actually to coincide it with Nikita's announcement. So, yes, I would have liked an opponent. I know since then it's been announced it will most likely be Erickson Lubin, although No Limit still haven't, as far as I know, officially said that he will be 100% the guy. That Jesus Ramos was also mentioned as well. But I think there's been a few different sites and whatever it might be have put leaks out that it will be Eriksson Lubin, and my money would be on Lubin as well. But as I said, I don't think up to now it's been officially confirmed and anything like that from No Limit, but that looks like the case. But yeah, Big John, I hear you there, mate. But in this case, I don't mind it. Why not make it a big event and have everyone tune in and they'll no doubt tune in the next time they announce it. Now we do have an opponent. I'll go back and try and get back on track here. What do we got? Shamrock 11. How are you, mate? G'day, Lynden and lads. Olympics start this week. Have you been following our chances in the boxing? I've been binge watching Terramona. He's a good size, good speed, good power for a heavyweight. Yes. Now, Shamrock, I must admit I have been guilty of not really following a lot of what the Olympic team's been doing. I did obviously see the announcement of the team. Have seen most of the fighters fight at least a couple of times. And I do agree. Probably Harry Garside is obviously the other one. I think a few of the females will step up and maybe surprise a few and maybe medal. Will they win a gold? I'm not quite sure our females are right at the level with some of the internationals, but you never know. It all comes down to the draw. Now, I actually got asked this on the live we did on Saturday night and about the chances of some of our fighters. And I did say then that it really comes down to the draw. If you get a really good draw, then it can really set you up. Happened with, it sort of happened. It didn't happen for Harry Garside at the last Olympics. I think he got a really good draw up until the semis where he ran into Andy Cruz. If he had got someone else, I think he could have beaten whoever else he fought, especially the guy that Andy Cruz actually beat for the gold medal. And then even if he lost to Cruz, at least it would have been in the final. It would have had a silver medal, and who knows. But with Terramona, I'm not quite sure of the competition in that division, Shamrock, but I've seen him fight amateur and pro, of course. Don't forget he did fight pro there a couple of times, and I think he's a big chance, Shamrock, a big, big chance of at least a medal. And Harry Garside, again, as I said, will probably depend on his draw. It's a pretty hot division, the lightweight division. Always sort of from lightweight up to welterweight are always probably the most competitive divisions in it. And I think he has a big chance. But there's 12 boxers going. The only one that missed out was Adrian Paoletti from Melbourne. I know Adrian. I was shattered for him. He's had a couple of cracks at it now. So maybe he'll come back in 4 years' time. Who knows? But he was the only one that didn't qualify. So, look, it just shows that our boxing program is on the right track. And let's hope we get a few medals out of this. And with 12 boxers in it, you would expect that we'd at least have 2 or 3 that are really in a medal, the medal hunt. All right, now still on that. I think now I've got back in order. Still with Shamrock, regardless of the results at the Olympics, I think Terramona are set for a good pro career. Well, geez, could you see Terramona and Justice Huni at some stage? I know I could. That would be awesome. But as a pro, he still looked great. Look, his level of competition, Shamrock, in the pros wasn't great, but he only had, I think he had, 2, 3 fights, whatever it might have been. So, you know, he's done everything that he needs to, and I think he's got a big future, so big. But also for a big guy, he's got actually very good boxing skills, and I think you said before, the power's there. He's actually technically very, very good, so I think that he will go okay as well. All right, Asbite, how are you there, mate? Tim's back, bloody epic. Lubin is easy work for Tim. If Ramos backed up Lubin and was dominating him, then he's gone in front of Tim. P.S. Lubin, that fight, in my opinion, don't reckon he wants any part of Tim. I don't think he wants to come to Australia, but I think that's been pretty obvious for all to see. But again, I said on the live stream the other night that I just don't see what else there is for Lubin. I think he was actually lucky in the Ramos fight. I think it could have maybe gone the other way. But good on him, he got the win. But I'm with you there. I think he is easy work for Tim. But I think it's more so he doesn't want to come to Australia. And you probably wouldn't blame him. It's not like there's a title on the line, or I think, did Lubin have maybe... No, he didn't have the WBC interim. I had it in my mind that when he beat Ramos, it was for some sort of interim or silver belt or something like that. Maybe it was a silver belt, whatever it might have been. But either way, he's not the A side. Even in the States, he wouldn't be the A side, I wouldn't have thought. I think they want to really get behind Tim. So I think the fight does make sense. I think Lubin versus Tim does make sense in all facets. And but I'm with you there, mate. I think Tim makes pretty easy work of Erickson Lubin. I actually think Ramos would be the harder fight. So I think it's a good one back for Tim. It's a good name, good scalp, gets the win, and then puts himself right back into calculations, whether it be with Crawford, Spence, Madrimov, Fundora, Virgil Ortiz, who knows. But at least he'll be right back on the right side of the ledger and in line for some big fights. I think I've got everyone's early comments there. All right. Tommy Dokes, how are you there, mate? Actually, I think your comment before that was the first one. Hope all is well. Love to hear what you think about the new Loma reports. Yes, seems odd. They've been negotiating for months only for Loma to fly from Ukraine to America and say, nah, maybe in 2025. Yeah, look, I've got a feeling, and if you don't know, guys, everyone's been talking, of course, that Loma and Tank Davis would happen at the end of the year. That seemed to be the word from very reliable sources, of course, including their managers and promoters and everything else. But what's happened now is that Loma has said, no, I'm not really. I think the words were Tommy from his promoter or manager was he's not in the mood. So that's Loma for you. I'm not totally surprised, Tommy, if I'm being completely honest. It is probably a little bit odd that Loma would fly, like you said, from Ukraine to America to say, no, I'll fight him maybe next year. But I would think that he would have been probably asked to go and maybe sit down. Maybe he wasn't feeling it and was just asked by, Egis Klumas to go over and maybe meet with a few different people and whatever it might be. Although it is normally the manager's job, isn't it? So it is maybe a little bit odd when you think about it. But Loma's Loma. Maybe he went over there and maybe it was all spoken about, and then he got home and said, nah, look, I just think I'll sit out the rest of the year. He has fought once a year for the last few years, so it's not a new thing. And when you're at his level and his age, he knows his body better than anyone. He knows that he can prepare in a camp quite easily, give 10 or 12 weeks, whatever it might be. So, yeah, I'm not totally surprised, Tommy, and maybe it does open the door for Shakur and Tank Davis now, which is your next comment there. It's time we have Shakur at 27 and Tank at 29. Perfect time for the fight. Shakur is a free agent, so maybe sign a 2 to 3 fight deal with PBC. Yes, Tommy, there's one problem with what you're saying there. Well, first of all, you've got everything right. At 27 and 29, the timing is 100% perfect for these two to fight. And yes, Shakur was a free agent. Another tick. The 2 to 3 fight deal with PBC. Yes, another tick could quite easily happen. The problem you have there, Tommy, is that you have two guys and the teams, or not so much Shakur, now he hasn't got a team, but with massive egos who will want far too much money. They'll both want to be the A side. It'll just be an absolute circus, and it'll be like trying to put a round peg in a square hole, trying to get these guys they won't be at the negotiating tables, but their team will, the teams. And I just think it's going to be a hard fight to make. I just do. I just think they both have very similar personalities. It's probably hard to explain. My gut feeling is that I'm not sure Shakur. I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I hope I get proven wrong when they do fight at the end of the year. I've just got a feeling this is going to be way too hard to put together because I just think their egos are way too big. I think they'll both maybe price themselves out of it. These are two guys, Tommy, that I think would be quite prepared to not fight purely and solely because they both want to go out second and get introduced second. This is the sort of stuff we're talking about here. And for you and I, it is absolutely ridiculous. And for real fighters like the Tim Tszyu of the world, who would not give a toss if they're first, second, whatever, the Lomachenkos, we had the same case here in Australia. Those guys would not care, but these two would. And that's what I'm saying. This could quite literally be derailed because Shakur says, I'm going out second, and Tank says, no, I'm going out second. This is the sort of shit that we put up with the fighters of these, like these two guys. So hopefully I'm wrong, but I've just seen it too many times that fights get delayed, derailed for just ridiculous shit. So let's hope this is not the case and they both see the value in them fighting at the moment and the money they could make and the legacy they could build. But I have no faith in either of these two guys, Tommy, to sit down and respectfully and professionally sort out a deal. So we'll see. All right. Oh, sorry, Asbot. Yep, should read Lubin lost that fight. Yep. All right. It's at Eminem 88. Awesome to see Liam Wilson back to his KO winning ways. Was that that was last week? Have we actually been on here since then? Was that was that last week? Maybe it was. Yes, it was. Wilson versus Ibi Bala next. Yeah, well, what a fight that was. I must admit, I said last week I thought it would be an excellent fight. I thought Ibi Bala was a chance, but I did think that Jalen Tate being the hometown fighter and maybe being a little bit younger, and I just thought his boxing ability might have been enough. But Ibi Bala fought a great fight. Now, having said that, I did actually think I did score it just for Jalen Tate, but there were so many rounds that were close. I have no issue at all with anyone that disputes that. I did give the really close rounds to Jalen Tate being the hometown fighter. I had my hometown goggles on, but really glad that they judged it correctly and gave Ibi Bala the rounds that he should have won. I don't think it was as wide as maybe a couple were. I think it was a majority decision. So I think it was 95-95, which is fine. 96-94 for Ibi, which I have no problem with. That would just be a round different or a couple of rounds different to me. But the 7 rounds to 3, I think, was way off the mark even for Ibi Bala. But the main point of the whole thing is the right fighter won. And even though I did score it just for Jalen Tate, as I said, I gave him a lot. I gave him all the really, really close rounds, and there was a lot that could have went either way. So I'm just glad, again, as I said, that Ibi got the decision, and Liam Wilson makes a lot of sense. I think he gives Liam Wilson a very good fight. Very good fight. Is he at the level? Look, he did say after the fight, I think he said he was the best lightweight in Australia, and I went, okay, well, that's a bold statement considering you got Liam Wilson and George Kambosos in there. But when he said he was maybe the best lightweight in the world, I must admit I did have a double take. I'm not getting too excited there, but look, I think it's a really good fight, and let's hope. It's going to be interesting to see how they get the fight together. I think Ibi might be a free agent. This, of course, was on the Premier Boxing Series. Liam's obviously with No Limit. I've got a feeling we'll see it on No Limit, maybe even as a pay-per-view later in the year. I think it's a great fight. And as I said, at this stage, I'll probably still pick Liam Wilson to win, but an awesome fight for Liam Wilson as he hopefully tries to get himself another world title shot. Let me know of what you thought of that fight, by the way. I'm just trying to think. I'm not sure we've had a show since the Dib and Wilson fight. Anyway, that was last week. Anyway, let me know. It's easy to lose track here. All right, Mutzi, an easy night in the office for Nakatani on Saturday. Wow, what a strange fight it was, Mutzi. Now, if you didn't see it, it only goes for about 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes, all right? So if you've got a spare 5 minutes in your day, make sure you watch it. Well, not really a lot to see. Now, Nakatani, it was a bit of a probing type of round, both guys. Not much really thrown. They were sort of poking out the lead hands and having a good look at each other. And then Nakatani goes to the body with a straight left to the body. Now, it didn't hit Astrolabio in the midsection, so you would assume that it hit him low, but it didn't hit him low. He didn't hit him. There was obviously no warning from the referee or whatever it might be, any controversy with the referee saying it was low, nothing like that. The corner of Astrolabio didn't protest about any low blow. Now, if you look at it, hit him right on the belt line, which is where your protector is. So if you haven't been a boxer before, or even if you haven't been a boxer, even playing football, whatever, basketball, whatever it might be, and you've been hit in the stomach, you know that it's either two places you'll get hurt to the extent of the way he went down, like he'd been shot. Now, it's normally the midsection or it's normally in the short ribs, either side, left or right. When you hit with a good left hook to the body, that's your short ribs. Midsection, of course, we're all familiar with that. So how that punch that landed on his belt line, that pretty much would have hit him on the protector, the top of the protector, how that made him go down to the point where he was pretty much counted out, or he got up and then went back down again, I just don't get it. Now, I would never think there's anything untoward going on, but that's as sus can be. I just don't get it. As I said, it wasn't like it hit him in the midsection or the short ribs. This is just pretty much where his belly button is. Now, it might have been a bit of a shock to the system, I don't know. Maybe it caught him. He was breathing in. I don't know, but it certainly wasn't enough to stop him the way it did, Muchie. So your guess is as good as mine. But I think everyone was surprised, most of all Nakatani, who it was an absolute fast. Anyway, Nakatani, let's hope we get that fight within away next. What a fight that would be. All right, we'll move on. Sammy T, apologies if I'm behind here, guys. I'll catch up as we go. Hey, Lynden, this week's DAZN card has a great main and co-main, but rest of the card is pretty ordinary. Can't believe 42-year-old Les Sherrington gets the okay to fight with 17 stoppage losses. Wow, okay. Well, this is Justice Huni we're talking about here. Let me bring it up. I must admit, I didn't have a look at the whole card, and I think it's on, when did you say, Thursday? So I will, well, it is Thursday, I think it is. So I might even do a watch along on that one. Let's have a look at the card. So you've got Justice Huni fighting Troy Pilcher. I think it's a pretty easy night for Justice. I think Troy Pilcher will be tough as nails, but I think Justice Huni, should have more than enough to beat him. Lucas Miller, Clay Waterman will be a really good fight. Let's have a look at the rest. Oh, geez. All right. So now I understand what you're saying there, Sammy. Austin Akuso versus Les Sherrington. Now, that fight should not be allowed to happen under any circumstances. Les Sherrington coming off a first-round obliteration to Andrei Mikhailovich. Had a win in Thailand. Might have been over there on a holiday and decided to have a fight while he was there. But before that, had been knocked out 3 times in a row. He'd had a win between that, and then he'd lost his 4 fights by stoppage before that. So, and you're right, he's been stopped 17. He's been 18 losses, stopped 17 times. That is not good. Sammy, should not be allowed to happen. The other fight, Xavier Fletcher against Sutama Manuel. Don't know anything about those guys. Max McIntyre, Mika Rivetti. Don't know anything about those guys. And Ula Moy against Veni Murphy. Don't know anything about those guys either. Look, it is free, Sammy. So, well, free if you've got DAZN. So, we'll just put it down to that, eh? I'm just more focused on the main 2 fights. But that is... What are the odds that it's a first-round knockout for Austin Akuso? I wonder if we can get odds on that. Probably wouldn't be too long anyway, really, if you think about it. So, but no, I don't like it, Sammy. I'm not sure whether it's a late replacement or whatever it might be, but no good. No good. All right, Big J. Harris has as much chance of beating Trump in the election as that chump McAllister has of beating me in the ring. Please, Jake, Paul, fight Opatai. He'll get beheaded for sure. Yeah, well, we won't get too much into the politics. I'm sure everyone's got their own thoughts on everything. I'm Team Trump. I can't believe they would I can believe they've got rid of Joe Biden, by the way, but I cannot believe that Kamala Harris has been put up. However, if you're wondering the same thing, I think the reason is because it's we're so close to the election. They've all got a campaign and a lot of money to do campaigning, that if Harris runs, she gets the funding that's already been raised by Joe Biden, because they're obviously on the same ticket. So she would get the campaign money to help her in her pursuit of the presidency. Whereas if it had been anyone else, they would have to start afresh and start fundraising from scratch. And with 3 or 4 months to go, not close enough, or not long enough, I should say, which is probably why it looks like Harris has got the nod. But at least it's made it a little bit interesting, Big J. I don't think anyone really wanted to see a rematch of Biden versus Trump, did they? I think we all saw that in the debate a few weeks ago, that it was pretty one-sided, but this will just make it a little bit interesting. We'll see. And I'm with you there. Jake Paul fight Opatai. He'll get beheaded for sure. Well, that would require actually fighting a boxer, Big J, and not just a boxer or any old boxer. This is the best cruiserweight in the world. It ain't going to happen. I will tell you one thing, though, Big J. He looked big. Now, I've seen some photos in the lead up into his previous fights. He's probably walking, well, it looked like he was walking around sort of the 85, 190 mark. I mean, he looks huge. I know he weighed in at 200. I know he's been bulking up for the Mike Tyson fight, but he was so much bigger than, what was his name? Perry. But just in general, he looked huge. So I don't know if he's on the juice or whatever it might be, but he just looked massive. All right, Andy, how are you there, mate? Yes, hit the subscribe, share, And like buttons there, please. If you're watching in, make sure you hit that button. Matzi says, I'm looking forward to Crawford Madrimov. This card is solid too. Yeah, well, that's on this weekend. No, next weekend. Sorry, 2 weeks away. All right. So the card with that one, just quickly, I know you probably all know this. You've all probably studied the card backwards, frontwards, and sidewards. I'll give you just a quick rundown of the card as it stands. So we've got Crawford Madrimov as the main event for the WBA and WBO super welterweight titles, or 154. We've got David Morrell against the Russian, was it? Kalajdzic for the WBA. It says vacant light heavyweight title, but I'm assuming it's the interim title. Of course, Beterbiev and Bivol are the champions. Isaac Cruz defending his WBA 140-pound title over Jose Valenzuela. I think Cruz wins that one pretty comfortably. Andy Cruz against Antonio Moran for the IBF International Lightweight title, which would be good. Zihad Almayoff against Michael Bullock. Sorry, don't really know much about those guys. Jared Big Baby Anderson against Martin Bacoli. And Andy Ruiz for his first fight this decade against Big Baby Miller. So, yeah, should be a good card. G'day, Sam. How are you there, mate? Despite missing weight, Dylan Biggs looked quite good in a real good scrap against Marcus Hayward on the weekend. How tough is Marcus? And absolute iron chin. It was a good fight. I wasn't aware that he actually missed weight. So, I mean, I did look at the weights as we were going and saw he weighed 163. And I thought, well, how do you miss weight when you've just come up to the division? So, of course, he lost to Nakata Tszyu at 154, and now all of a sudden he's fighting at supposed to be fighting at 160, weighs in at 163. Marcus Hayward, to his credit, continued on with the fight, but he looked massive. I would think probably a little bit disappointing that Dylan Biggs missed weight. I just think it's always disrespectful to your opponent, the promoters, the sanctioning bodies, your fans, your trainers, yourself when you miss weight. So, and it wasn't just Dylan for the weekend. What was it? Rodriguez against the Japanese fighter over there, 6 pounds overweight, so nearly 3 kilos over. And when you're at those weights, so I think it was super flyweight. Light flyweight it might have been. That's a lot of weight to miss by when you weigh 115 or 112, whatever it was. So, but I thought he looked okay, Sammy. I don't think he really got out of his comfort zone at all. I'll just adjust myself there. I don't think he really got out of his comfort zone. I think he was happy just to jab and not really take any risks. I think he realised early on that no matter how much bigger he was than Marcus Hayward, he was going to struggle to get him out of there. And you're right, he's got an iron chin. So I think he just boxed smart, got some rounds in. Was it an 8-rounder? So, yeah, I think he was okay. It'll be interesting to see what he does going forward. There's some okay fights at 160. Look, I don't mind him fighting these types of guys for the next 2 or 3 fights and get a few rounds under his belt, get a little bit more experience. He's a young guy. He's only, 21, 22, so he's got plenty of time. So I'm not sure why I'll be risking him against the likes of Isaac Harbin and these types of guys when you can fight the Haywoods of the world, get some experience, get some rounds, and try a few different things that they might have been working on, and look at some of those guys like Hardman and Kamakeo and all those guys a little bit down the track. All right, Sammy, on the smaller shows here in Australia, if the fighters miss weight, do they get fined a portion of the purse, or is it only the big shows where it happens? Good question, Sammy. It depends. I remember when I was doing my shows, I would always, even if they were just in a 4-rounder, I would give them proper contracts with stipulation there that if they missed weight, then it would be a financial penalty and it would go to their opponent. Only ever happened to me once. And the fighter that got penalised jumped up and down and carried on, but I didn't care. He came in 2 kilos over the weight. His opponent had done everything right. The contract, I don't think he'd even read the contract, by the way. He just signed it, so yeah, there you go. But it's clearly in there to say that if you miss weight, it is a penalty and it goes to your opponent. Because, again, as I said, they've done the right thing. So I'm not quite sure how it works there, Sammy, because all promoters are a little bit different. Some promoters don't even, especially for the 4-rounders and 6-rounders, it's normally a handshake agreement. And if they don't make weight, then it's a quick conversation with the teams involved and they decide the penalty. Or, for instance, you might have someone misses weight, the 2 teams will get together and the team that actually made weight will say, okay, well, we'll still fight, but we want X amount of dollars might be per pound or per kilo, whatever it might be, as a penalty. And they will agree on it, and then they'll still fight. Obviously, with the title fights, it does happen. Actually, I think I might have said the other night that Ibi Bella actually on one of my shows missed weight against Neil John Tabaneo. Tabaneo, he didn't really care about. He was from the Philippines. Didn't really care about all that. But they fought for the WBO belt, regional belt, one of them. And I think Ibi, of course, couldn't win the belt, but Tabaneo could, and that's all he was worried about. So, but it is, on the smaller shows, mate. I think it just depends on the promoter. If they're and if the belts are on the line, I think sometimes even the combat board will step in and they can sort of be the gel in between as well and maybe get things right. But yeah, I'm not quite sure how common it is. As I said, apart from Ibi and that other time, I've never really had anyone that's missed weight. So, all right, there's Sam. Is it just me, or since Ryan Garcia gave a big up yours to the idea of actually making the weight, it seems to now be very prevalent. Good point of view there, Sam. You're right. It has, and since it's happened, we've had quite a few, and not just by a pound or two. We're talking 6 pounds. So, do we have Ryan Garcia to thank for turning the whole sport on its head and not giving titles any relevance? I would think Rodriguez on the weekend will never get invited back to Japan, I would think. I don't think the Japanese would take too kindly to that. But you're right. It almost seems like it's a little bit of the Wild West out there in boxing at the moment, isn't it? And Ryan Garcia, I think, is the cowboy in the black hat that's caused this by saying, I don't give a shit about a title. I don't give a shit about this. I just want the money. Even the money. If I make enough, you can keep some. I'm going to have as much advantage as I can. So, because you think about it, we've always, not just us fans, but the boxers themselves, promoters, everyone else, networks, have always put it all on. If there's a title on the line, it's all about the title. Ryan Garcia is the first one that's ever said, you know what? Keep your title. I'm going to do what's best to win because I'm looking at big picture. I'm looking at if I, like in the Devin Haney situation, becomes one of the biggest names in the sport. There'll be other champions that want to fight him at maybe at heavier weights. And, there's big paydays out there for him. Everyone wants to fight Ryan Garcia. And maybe if he hadn't made weight properly, maybe it would have been a different story. And all of a sudden, he's got no big paydays on the horizon. And even the year suspension wouldn't worry him. Was he 25 years old? He wouldn't care. So you're right, Sam. He has given the big up yours to everyone. And maybe this will be the norm going forward. Let's hope not. Bill Hack, away there, mate. I was paying to watch Barry Hall last 1 minute. Any better? Some paid $60 just for that fight. To me, the card was $6 and a like. That was last week's. Was that last? No, that was the week before, I think, wasn't it? The Barry Hall one. Yeah, well, mate, look, I look at the whole card as in its entirety. And that Barry Hall fight was a massive embarrassment to the show. But I think overall the card was actually quite solid. I'm not quite sure Liam Wilson would have been happy to be fighting under Barry Hall, to be honest. And what's his name? Curtis. I was going to call him Curtis Stone again. Curtis Scott. And quite rightly so. I think they should have still had Liam as the co-main. The footy players could have been on. They still would have sold just as many pay-per-views, had just as many in the arena. Maybe they were worried that maybe people might leave the arena. I don't think they would have. But, I didn't mind the card as a whole, Bill. I'm with you. Trevor Taylor, agree about Marcus, but Biggs was impressive going up in weight. Yeah, there's a few sort of conflicting comments about Biggs, Trevor. I'm with you. I actually thought he looked okay, but there was a few comments on the night said he looked pretty ordinary. So I thought he fought very conservatively. As I said, just using the jab, not taking any risks, and that's okay. He's coming off a stoppage loss, so I don't get it. I don't begrudge that. But was he impressive? I think I'm a little bit in between. He was impressive, but not overly impressive, if that makes sense. But he certainly wasn't unimpressive. I think I've hedged all my bets there. But, we'll just see. I think when you come off a stoppage loss and you go up in weight and you've had a little bit of a layoff, you just want to get a win. You're not really... you don't really care maybe the circumstances of it or maybe the fighter does, but the teams they just want to get a win. And I think he did that. Didn't take any risks. I said before, I just thought it was pretty obvious early on that Marcus Hayward was tough and he wasn't going to get him out of there. So why risk it? He could have hurt his hands, could have got caught with a big shot. Just get the rounds, win the fight, and move on to the next one. Get that it was Biggs' first time at the new weight, but maybe sanctioning bodies need to look at it. If you don't make the weight, then you don't fight. Surely would change the attitude. Yeah, well, was it for a belt though, Sam? I'm not sure it was it? Let me have a look. I didn't think it was for a belt. Shouldn't have been anyway when Munro, Hayward was coming. Sorry, I called you Munro. When I think Hayward, I was going to say, it was coming off a loss. So, no, it wasn't for a belt. So it was just an 8 round. So, but Sam, I think as who was it just said before about the about the weight situation? Yeah, well, maybe the sanctioning bodies or the combat boards, whatever it's got to be, have really got to start making a stand now. Because if they don't, then it just might be a free for all, and all of a sudden we've got fighters all over the place. Cards are falling over. Broadcasters maybe don't want to televise them because they're worried about the main events falling over on the day or the weigh in, whatever it might be. So it has a lot of repercussions. So so maybe whoever's, as I said, the combat board or the sanctioning bodies or promoters should really make a stand and put some guidelines in place, maybe fines, suspensions, whatever it might be, to stop fighters taking the Ryan Garcia route. Thoughts on Dylan Biggs and Hardman? Good question there, Eminem 88. From what I saw the other night, I think it'd be a really good fight. I think technique-wise, Dylan Biggs, I think, would probably have Isaac covered, but Hardman can punch. We've all seen that, and Dylan, obviously, not that he got knocked out by Nikita, but he was stopped. Interesting fight, a really interesting fight. I like it. I like the fight. I'm just trying to think who I would pick if they did fight. Look, I would probably say Dylan Biggs. I'm sure the Isaac Hardman fans out there won't like that, but I just think technique-wise, he looked big at the weight again, and I think he would have learned a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think Isaac, and there's probably some of you out there saying, hang on, Hardman was ranked at world level. Now you're not having him beat. You're not picking him to beat someone like Dylan Biggs, a kid who just got stopped by Nikita Tszyu. The reasoning I've got is that, again, I'll say it, I'm a massive fan of Isaac. I think he's so good for Aussie boxing. The problem I have with Isaac, though, is that his power seems to have sort of deserted him a little bit as the level of competition has gone up, and that's to be expected. He's not getting that clean shot on these guys because obviously they're good fighters for a reason. And now he's being exposed a little bit as far as being limited as far as his boxing skills go. He's always got around that by just landing the shot and it's all over. And that's great against the lesser lights. But when you're coming up against the real good guys, even just domestically or Australian level, and you can't land that shot, you're going to have to measure up technique-wise. I've just got a feeling that Isaac, and of course it was shown in his last fight where he actually got stopped, but I just think, I'm hoping that he's probably worked a little bit more on his actual technique and forgot about the power side of things. You still have the power and technique. You can't have one and not the other. You can have both. But I just think unless he's worked a lot on his technique, I think Dylan Biggs wins that fight. So I'd still like to see that though, mate. And Kamakaya win there as well. All right, Big J, look at the bright side. The most embarrassing thing last week wasn't Angie Rolsha. It was bloody Queensland losing to New South Wales in Brisbane on Wednesday night. Bunch of losers, sacked a lot of them. Geez, it was a different tune to what you were singing when they beat them in Sydney there, Big J. I don't know. I didn't watch it. Actually, I did turn it over and watched about 3 minutes, and I was like, I'm going to try and watch it. I lasted 3 minutes, Big J, and that was about it. I turned it over and watched the tennis instead. It might have been. I don't know what it was. But no, look, it's just me. I just couldn't get into it. By all accounts, the people that watched it said it was one of the best Origins ever, and that's great. I'm not going to get stuck into the league. I just couldn't watch it. It's just me. All right, there's Glenn in the chat. How are you there, Glenn? Sorry, I'm still way behind. I'll try and catch up. Maybe Loma tied and should have just retired after Cambosis win. Loma has done and achieved a lot in boxing as is. Did think Loma beat Huni, to be honest, says Andy. To be honest, Tank or Shakur would be awesome, but retirement, understandable. I think he's got one fight left in him, Andy, and he wants it to be the big one. which is why he's not going to rush into it. He wants the sitting to be right. Look, as I said, maybe he went along in great faith and with the best intentions and sat down and they went through it all, and maybe there's a few numbers and that thrown around, and maybe on the plane back home he said Aegis Klumas. Aegis, I don't know. I'm not sure. This is what I want right here and now, and Aegis doing the right thing has told the other team immediately, and maybe that's all it was. But I just think he wants one more big fight, or maybe it might be two. Maybe he wants to unify again if it all comes together. But maybe he's just looking at it and thought, yeah, look, maybe he's got a big, obviously going on in Ukraine, by the way. But maybe he's just thought, let's just hopefully see Tank and Shakur fight. I'll then fight the winner, get a crack at 3 belts instead of 2, and make that my swan song. I don't know. But I'm sure there's a good reason behind it. I just think he definitely has got at least one in him, Andy, but maybe just, as I said, on the way home on the plane or in the limo to the airport or something, he's just said, no, I'm just not ready. Quick story I had, actually, Andy, a quick one for you. Now, of course, I was never at that level. I remember starting 97, it was 1997, just been the Olympics, of course, the previous year, went to the Commonwealth Championships in South Africa and won that, and the Australian titles and all that sort of stuff. Went in the 97 and ready to go. I was trained right through all over summer. I was ready to go, and I got to training camp, and about 3 days in, I was just like, that's it. I haven't got it no more. Just like that. And I needed 6 months off to come back to go again. So it can happen. You can lose your spark, and especially when you're at that level, and you don't really need the money. He's obviously a multi-millionaire, so maybe he just wants that last big payday, and that'll be it. All right, Batman. Junto is a beast. Beats Bam if he moves. Only Inoue beats Junto. Anyone else below 122 is getting beaten soundly by Junto. I want to see that fight, Batman. And I'll tell you what was great after the fight is that Junto Nakatani said he wants Inoue. So there's the first step. Now, I think we've discussed it on here a couple of times that they might not fight because of the Japanese thing and the respect and honor and all that sort of stuff for each other. Well, that went out the window because Junto said, I want Naoya Inoue. And that's why I think Inoue will stay at 122. And Junto will maybe get another couple of defenses under his belt. And maybe maybe early next year or this time next year, we could have Inoue and Junto. I reckon Inoue would want to fight and beat Junto before he goes to 126. So everyone's saying, why doesn't he go up now? Well, one, he doesn't have to go up. I'm talking about Inoue here. Why should he have to go up just because we want him to? I know he's cleaned out the division, but many of the all-time greats in boxing have been in one division, let alone 3 or 4 or 5, whatever it might be. So I got no dramas if he decides to stay at 122. But I've just got a feeling he's keeping an eye on Junto Nakatani. Massive fight in Japan. I shudder to think what they could earn each out of that fight over there. And I think Inoue staying at 122 for the time being. He'll fight TJ Doherty in September. He'll probably fight Sam Goodman in December. And then maybe mid next year, so this time, maybe May, June, whatever it might be, we could have Junto and Inoue. And for me, probably you look at Beterbiev and Bivol. Besides that one, it's probably the next, along with that one, the biggest fight I would love to see. And I'd love to see Shakur and Tank, or Tank and Loma, or Shakur and Loma, whatever. But what a fight that would be. Wow. All right, there's Larry in the chat. Junto is a fantastic fighter, but Astrolabio didn't deserve to get that fight. A bit of a soft touch. Soft touch is an understatement, Larry, considering what happened when he got in there. Shocking. And this is a guy who, I know it's different getting hit to the body compared to the head, but this is a guy that got hit with everything except the corner stool by Jason Maloney and did not take a backward step. And he gets hit with a little left hand to the belt line and goes down like he's been shot. Yeah, something not right there. But anyway. Hang on, Batman. The sound of that shot was nasty. He threw it with perfect technique also. Was it? I don't know. I don't buy it, Batman. If there was any sound, it would have been hitting the top of the protector. So, yeah, I don't know. It didn't hit him in the solar plexus, so I don't know where below the solar plexus you could hit, apart from the obvious place where you could go down like that. So it's got me buggered. Larry says it reminded me of the Jamal Charlo Rosario fight, both weird fights. Well, that was weird, but yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's a good reason. Look, to me, Astrolabio is not the type of guy that would normally go down like that. And I know, and I've seen it firsthand, you get a lot of fighters, you can hit them in the head with a crowbar and they'll keep coming. You hit them with a good body shot and they'll go down. I've seen it. But it wasn't a midsection, a solar plexus or liver shot. So I don't know. And it wasn't really low. So I don't know. I've never seen that happen before, mate. But anyway, we'll move on. You're right, Andy. Nakatani is definitely a beast. That's an understatement for sure. Glenn says, I get Loma being unmotivated, long career, countries at war, and let's be serious. He would never get a decision against Tank. He's tasted a robbery before with Haney. Yeah, maybe he's taken all that into account, Glenn. And it's just said, all right, well, yeah, I'll just let Shakur and Tank fight, then I'll just fight the winner. That's easy. We always say a fighter should be active, but Loma's shown he doesn't need to be active. So I don't begrudge him at all. I think it's probably a smart decision. Let Shakur and Tank hopefully get it on, and then he fights the winner and gets a shot at 3 belts instead of 1. Probably 3 belts instead of 2. It's probably a lot bigger fight than maybe just Tank versus Loma. If Tank beats Shakur and beats him, it's even a bigger fight. That's a risky fight for Tank, though, I think. It'd be a very good fight with Shakur and Tank. But either way, if that's the way it pans out, I don't care. All great fights. All right, Larry, Junto should fight Inoue's brother first. Yeah, not a bad point there. Takuma Inoue, who holds a WBC. I thought it was a WBA, but either way, whatever. If he beats him, that builds up. Actually, might be right there, whatever. If he beats him, that builds up to him against Inoue, revenge or repeat type scenario. Yeah, that's a good call. Yep, I like that, Larry. I've got a feeling, though, that Inoue Jr. would maybe have Takai, one of those types of guys in his sights first, I would think. But anyway, look, Japan is ruling those lower divisions. You take Bam Rodriguez out of the equation, and they just dominate from 122 and below, don't they? Batman says, Andy, no doubt for me, Junto is definitely the second best fighter active from Japan, and he's a problem for anyone below 122. Many guys at 122, just not the monster. Well, you look at Junto, he's right in between. He's got Inoue at 122, and he's got Bam Rodriguez at 115. So he's right in the middle. So really, maybe, could we see it? Could we see that another scenario is that Junto has Bam Rodriguez move up, Inoue takes care of Doheny and Goodman. Maybe Junto has a defense and then fights Bam, and then we have both of those guys fighting next year. I don't think, although I would love to see what a fight that would be, Inoue and Bam, I just think they're a little bit too far apart as far as weights go now, unless they did the catch weight at 118. Well, not really catch weight because there'd be titles on the line, but Inoue's at 122, although I've got no doubt he would make 118 comfortably. And then you got Bam, who allegedly couldn't make 112, so of course he's gone to 115. Wow, those three. Imagine they all fought each other at some stage. Junto, Inoue, and Bam. Wow. Just some unbelievable fights there to be made. Oh, sorry, Larry. Yep, the WBA. Thank you. I'm not going crazy. Still with Larry. Jaime Munguia will be fighting Eric Bazinian. Okay, in October, from what I've heard. Not official yet, but that's another decent fight. I like that one. Yep. I'm a fan of Munguia. I think he was harshly judged by the Canelo fight. Even though, having said that, I thought he put up a great fight against Canelo. But before that, you take Benavidez out of the equation. Everyone was saying Munguia was the next one in line behind Canelo. So it wasn't until after Canelo, I thought, obviously handled him quite well in the end. A lot of people say he wasn't ready and he's nobody. Well, he had 40-something fights, 2-time world champion. Geez, you've got to give the guy a bit of credit. More importantly, give Canelo credit for making it look easy. So I thought he did very, very well for the first 4 or 5 rounds. So, but that's not a bad fight, Larry. Daniel, yeah, okay. Letting his political allegiances out there for everyone. Trump 2024. All right, when Jake said Jai's name, I just thought this guy is genuinely delusional and needs a slap now. Now, apparently, he also called out the UFC champion. Now, try and think of his name. Is it Alex Pereira? If that's his name. I don't know about him. Again, I don't follow UFC. but apparently the UFC fans spat their coffee out all over their coffee mugs when, they spat the coffee all over their computer screens or TV screens when he mentioned him. But look, Batman, I think you've got to take it for what it is. I mean, Jake Paul would know that he's a sideshow act. He would know he's got no hope against those guys, but geez, what a salesman. He had 18,000 people at the venue. He probably made 20, 30, 40 million. I don't know what the hell he'd make, plus all his endorsements and sponsorships and you name it. The guy, I think he's an absolute peanut, an absolute clown, but geez, have you ever seen anyone like him who's so much of a D-grade, E-grade fighter, F-grade fighter, whatever you might want to talk, makes so much money and creates so much stir. If he fights Mike Tyson this year, take out all the other big fights that we've got and have coming up, and that is the biggest fight of the year. A guy from the Disney Channel who has he's fought one boxer and lost to said boxer, and that said boxer is a reality TV boxer against a former world champion who's 58 years of age. That will be the biggest fight of 2024. Now, I'm still to be convinced the fight actually takes place, if I'm being completely honest. And I think Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is on standby. He looked equally as bad on the weekend. He's on standby. Can you imagine the lead up to that? Jake Paul fighting Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Former world champion, the son of a legend. You won't mention that it was 10 years ago that he was actually relevant. But anyway, that, as I say, never let the truth get in the way of a good story, but the way he'll promote that up. So as I said, Batman, I don't think Jake Paul believes for a second that he's actually in the league with those guys, but that doesn't matter. He just needs to have us all jumping up and down and getting all butthurt about it and paying money to see him lose. That's all he worries about. So I take the hat off to him. Again, I think he's a clown, but you know, who's the clown, I suppose, when he's probably worth $100 million? I don't know. So, yeah, it's just amazing to think in this day and age, Batman. All right, Larry, don't be surprised if Michelle Obama ends up running instead of Kamala with Hillary as VP. Geez, that'll throw the cut amongst the pigeons too. Larry, Big Mike up against Trump. We'll see. Oh, is that right? Batman has Andy Cruz has pulled out of that fight. Wow, there you go. I didn't know that, Batman. Geez, I'm on the sites all day scouring all the news. And I didn't actually see that, Andy. Has that happened just in the last couple of days? I'm not sure. Sorry about that. So he's off the card. There you go. Larry didn't know either. God damn it, my favourite upcoming fighter. Yeah, I think he'll be a world champion within 6 or 7 fights, I think, Larry. Nick Bella, what do you think of the fight between Ibrahim Bella and Liam Wilson? I know you picked against him in his last 2 fights. Big fan of Ibby. I'm sorry, Nick. And I know, are you related to Ibby? I don't know. I'm sorry. I do apologise. I didn't mean... Look, the only reason I've tipped against Ibby in his last couple of fights, I think you could forgive me for picking against him in both fights, if you're being honest. I mean, he'd had nearly, 5 years out of the ring, or 4.5, 5 years out of the ring after he lost the fight I promoted, the one in Melbourne. He got stopped, knocked out in that one in the second round. Came back, had a couple of very soft wins to get back. To come up against Yusuf Dib, and in his hometown and all, he was definitely the B side. Wasn't supposed to win. He was just put in as the opponent. I think you can forgive me for thinking Yusuf Dib would be able to beat Ibby, and I was pleasantly surprised, I will say. And I just thought up there again in Jalen Tate's home city, again, the B side of the card, and the fact that Jalen Tate showed he's a very, very good young fighter. I must admit I underestimated Ibby again, Nick. I won't be doing that again. Having said that, as I said earlier, I still would pick Liam Wilson in a very tough fight, by the way, in a very even fight. So that would make it 3 out of 3. And I don't mean to be that way against him. He's just come up against 3 good fighters. So, but I will say, Nick, from what I saw from Liam in last week's show, whatever it was, the week before, whenever he beat Yusuf Dib, great highlight reel knockout. It was fantastic. But he would need to fight a hell of a lot better than that against Ibrahim Bella. Because Ibrahim Bella can, I wouldn't say he's a big puncher, but he's a good puncher. He's got good timing, packs a punch, and he's got really good work ethic. He's on your chest. I think his style would really trouble Liam. So even though I would still pick Liam to win that fight, it would be a very, very tough fight for him. and hope we get to see it. But I don't deliberately go against Nick. I fully respect from what he's done since he's made the comeback. I really do. All right, Tommy, all fighters want money, right? This is prize fighting, but do you find American fighters are more high maintenance when that comes to money or ego? 100%. It's the high maintenance, Tommy. We've seen it, haven't we? So it's just constantly about this. And probably the worst was the Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia card. That is probably, even though I couldn't wait for the fight itself, I had to stop watching all the build-up to it, even though everyone kept sending it to me, with the absolute crap that those two went on with. Look, the fight measured up and everything was great. We all tuned in, and that's probably what they're after. But talk about high maintenance, Tommy. They are really hard work, some of the Americans. And you see them when they're at their little Instagram lives and all that they do. It's painful. It really is. I watched about 10 seconds of it the other day. I did Keyshawn Davis, Garcia. Who else was on there? Was it Shakur? They were all on there. And, oh, my God. I watched about 10 or 15 seconds and had to turn it off. It is just... It's like the old fingernails down the chalkboard for me, Tommy. But 100% they're high maintenance. And it takes a lot to get these fights done. Maybe that's the thing with Loma. Maybe they went over there and maybe Loma went over there with the best intentions, got to the meetings, and all of a sudden all this shit started with who's doing what and this and that and all the demands. He said, too hard, I'm going home. You guys sort it out. I'll fight the winner, or I'll fight his next year when you're willing to talk sensibly. So I just imagine being a fly on the wall. It'd be good. Actually, it would be good being a fly on the wall. But imagine being a foreign promoter going down and sitting down over there and trying to negotiate with the promoters and managers and fighters. Oh my God, it'd just be a nightmare. All right, Larry. By the way, what's that? Do you have any info on top-rated Aussie amateur Callum Peters? Will he eventually turn pro and perhaps take over 175 when Bivol and Better Beav is gone? Well, he's got a long way to go, Larry. He's a good young fighter. Don't get me wrong, and he's got a good chance at Olympics of maybe winning a medal or at least winning a fight or two. It's just a bit early, mate. I mean, look, a lot of these guys look great as amateurs, but when you turn pro, it's a different sport, 100% different sport. So he does look the goods. I think he on paper, he looks like he's going to be a very, very good fighter, but way too early to think he could be a force at 175, especially, I mean, Bivol and Better Beav. Well, you think Better Beav has only got a year or two to go. You think Bivol's probably got 2 or 3. I think they'll both be gone by the time Callum Peters is even close to getting a shot at a title if he goes down that road. I think we're probably going to be more talking about David Benavidez and David Morrell. They're the guys we might be talking about. And who knows, maybe there's Connor Wallace in there as well. I don't know. But I would think that Morrell and Benavidez are the ones we're going to have to look out for. Maybe Paul Awakuso might be another one. He's probably the one I would think is a really good chance of winning a world title is Paul Awakuso. So maybe we get a Kuso and Peters super fight in 5 years' time. Who knows? We'll see. So Batman says, yep, injury. Okay, that's on Andy Cruz. All right, don't know if you saw, but Andre Ward, who is 40, was hinting at a return to the ring to maybe fight Canelo. Probably just Andre keeping his name relevant, but wanted to get your thoughts. Yeah, I did see that, Tommy. Of course, he was doing some work with Terence Crawford, just some, what would you call it, shadow sparring, shadow boxing, whatever it might be. Look, the thing is, Tommy, the one thing you know about fighters is, and I didn't actually know he was that young. I had in my head he was 43, 44, whatever it was. So I didn't know he was only 40. And he has, what's it been, 5 years since he retired? Actually, I'll quickly look that up. I can't remember. It was against Kovalev, wasn't it, from memory? I'll quickly look it up as we're going. So he last fought. So he's got a 32-0 record. 2017. So 7 years it's been since he beat Kovalev for the second time. So he only would have been, 33 then? Wow, that's a pretty young stage to retire, isn't it? Yeah, look, I don't think he's overly serious, Tommy. I think, though, if that was the case, Canelo would certainly take him up on it because it might be a way out for Canelo not to fight Benavidez. I'll take on a tougher challenge in his mind, or to tell everyone, in Andre Ward. I don't know. It's a long way to come back, Tommy, when you've been out for 7 years. By the time they would fight, it might be 8 years. So I just think it's way too long. But, the ego these guys have got, you're very quickly forgotten. And maybe it is a way of keeping his name relevant and out there. But Maybe it's just people guessing. The fact he's actually in the ring doing some proper work with Terence Crawford, maybe it's got people talking. But no, I'd be surprised at that, Tommy. I don't think it happens. He's got to look. I don't think in the later years fighting was the be all and end all for him. I think he had other interests and pursuits outside the ring, and he'd done enough and retired. So yeah, I'm not sure. But geez, what a fight that could be built up as well. Canelo Alvarez and Andre Ward. Wow. All right, Andy, on the missing weight, just plain unprofessional, especially with the bigger stars. Full props to fighters chasing the dollars, but I watch to see who the best is. So belts matter. In my opinion, pocket watching pointless. Do agree there, Andy. It is very unprofessional. Would you say, Bill? I meant Barry's fight any worse than the girls' title fight last week? Both shithouse, in my opinion. That's a very good question there, Bill. Was the Barry Hall and Curtis Scott fight worse than the girls? I'm going to say no. Barry's fight wasn't worse than the girls because at least the two fighters in the ring, I mean, Barry looks ready to go. I know he's 47 years of age, but he looked fit and hard and strong. He looked great in training. He was talking himself up. So I get that on paper and to the naked eye, that looked like a great fight. Okay, of course, it was an embarrassing end to the fight. The girls' fight was just embarrassing all around, Bill. I remember seeing the weigh-in, thinking, what the hell? Short. I'm going to be careful what I say. She's a female, of course, but let's just say full. Full, short. I remember thinking, geez, I hope this girl fights a hell of a lot better than she looks. And she actually fought worse than she looks. The first little combination she threw was, well, you would have seen my reaction on the live watch along, Bill. I was horrified. So, no, I think the girls' fight was a lot worse than Barry's fight. Barry's performance was very ordinary, but the fight itself was okay on paper. The girls' fight on paper looked bad, and the fight itself looked even worse. It was a shocking look, Bill, I would have thought. Now, look, I did wonder why a world title fight wasn't a co-main or even the main. That answered my question as soon as the bell rang there, Bill. But no, to answer you, both shithouse, yes, you're right. But the girls' fight was 10 times worse than the Barry and Curtis Scott, in my opinion. Paul Michael Craig, Kira Rustin looked the business on the weekend. Apparently 30 fighters were offered the fight and knocked it back. What will his team have to do to get fights? Pay big time for the opponents, Paul. That's what they'll have to pay. And unfortunately, it happens. I've been there myself. When you've got a good young prospect, you're paying the opponent 2 or 3 times what the prospect's getting paid just so they get in the ring. And what you got to look at is that someone like Kira Rustin, who looked okay, the opponent, I mean, it was a one round. We didn't see anything, but by all accounts, very, very good young fighter. I'm sure he will be. Unfortunately, what you got to look at, maybe his first 7 or 8 fights, they're going to have to be in that situation where they're paying the opposition 2 or 3 times what he's getting paid just so he can get fights under his belt. And then when he gets 7 or 8 fights and he's in line to fight for titles, that's when it all changes. That's when, he's knocking on the door and challenging. He's mandatory. I'm not sure do they have mandatories in Australian titles? I'm not sure, but whatever it might be. So at least he gets himself in position to challenge for some titles, and then it all snowballs from there. But those first 7, 8, maybe even 10 fights, he's going to have to be in this position where they're paying the opponents a lot more money than him just to get him in the ring so he can get his record up and going. There'll be someone that'll back themselves that maybe they won't have to pay that amount of money for. But these early ones, mate, they don't come cheap, unfortunately. And you got a guy who knows he's been bought in to be the opponent and maybe get knocked out for the opponent's coming out party or whatever you might want to call it. They know what they're for, and there's fighters out there that are journeymen or professional journeymen. They know what's going to happen. They know exactly what they've been brought in to do, and they want their money. They want to be paid for it. You might have someone that, I don't know the figures here, but you might have someone that might want to fight, or they might want to fight Kira Rustin. He might get paid 10 grand for a 4-rounder just to make it happen. If not, sorry, I'm not interested. So they pay the 10 grand. Kira Rustin takes the absolute minimum wage, because he's investing in himself as well, don't forget. Take a hit now for the big paydays later on, and that's what happens. So that fighter he fought was actually undefeated. So So he's had the two. So he's at 175. So yeah, it's not going to be till he gets to the titles where he's not going to have to overpay to get opponents in the ring with him. But unfortunately, as I said, for those first 7, 8, maybe 10 fights, that's just what his team are going to have to do. All right, Glenn. Missing weight in the amateurs is unacceptable. No pro should ever not make weight ever. If they can't move up in weight class. I agree, Glenn, 100%. And I can proudly say I fought for, sorry, I keep bringing it back to myself. I don't mean to do that, but I'm just using it as an example. I fought for 15 years and had about 100 amateur fights, never missed weight once. Not once, ever. So, and I know this is a lot bigger scale, but all pros, or amateurs for that matter, should never not make weight. It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, we saw it with Janabek the other week that it's easy just to pull out, and he did the medical thing and kept his belts, and he just moves on. Poor old Mikhailovich gets left with nothing, gets left holding the bag, goes home. We not even know if he's going to get another crack at Janabek. So there's got to be more penalties for not making weight, Glenn, and that would then make the fighters think twice about not making weight, to the extent where we've talked about in the past, the Ryan Garcia rule, where it could be firmly written in the fighters' contracts, especially if we do get the Ryan Garcia domino effect, where someone said before, is this now going to be the norm? Well, maybe. So maybe there's going to be harsher penalties written into the contracts, where it could be for the big fights. Who knows? It could be $1 million for every pound that you're over. And suspension if you don't make the weight. Little things like that. And there's no pulling out for medical reasons. No, that's stiff. If you can't make weight, if you're dehydrated like Janabek was, well, stiff. You lose your belts, you get suspended and fined anyway, because you shouldn't have been at the weight. It's as simple as that. So I just think they might need harsher penalties, Glenn, and that will hopefully stop what we're seeing at the moment with this being more and more prevalent and common, where fighters just aren't making weights. And again, how does a fighter on the weekend miss weight by 6 pounds? I just don't get it. All right, Tommy, Vandy Ruiz beats Big Baby Miller. Do you think we could get a Parker rematch or a Zhang fight? Parker was only 32. Like to see him get a big fight. It does make sense, Tommy, Parker and Ruiz, but also so does Ruiz and Zhang. I've just got a feeling, Tommy, and just call it a gut feeling. I've got a thing that Parker might be left out in the cold, and which is totally wrong, because he's done everything to deserve a crack at it. The only thing he's got going in his favour, if Ruiz beats Baby Miller and they all start talking about him again, of course, Parker beat Ruiz back in, was it 2018, I think it was, so he might want revenge. If it wasn't for that factor, I would think, well, why would you fight Parker? He's not the most exciting guy, very risky to fight, doesn't bring a lot to the table. A lot bigger fights out there than him, and he can fight, so he's risky. I'm not sure. As I said, the only thing I think he's got going for him is the fact that he's beaten Ruiz, who might want the rematch. If it wasn't for that, I'd say Ruiz and Zhang makes a hell of a lot more sense. And that really, when you think about it, doesn't make sense, because Parker beat Zhang, so he should get the fight. It's a weird business we're in, Tommy. Pound for pound king, how are you there, mate? Maybe they're hoping Tank and Shakur happens next so we can fight the winner quicker to undisputed. That's what I think too. Pound for pound king. Larry says Shakur can't draw, so as Golden Boy said, why should Zepeda fight Shakur if he is already the draw? I would much rather see Zepeda and Baranchuk, and then if Zepeda wins, he fights Loma. Much more exciting. I'm with you there, Larry. I do agree. I just think Zepeda, just what a beast he is. I love that. And that Baranchuk fight would be really good. I don't see Baranchuk and Loma fighting. Of course, they're both Ukrainian. I think they're friends, so I doubt that happens. Maybe in another universe they could fight each other in Ukraine, but of course that's not going to happen. It made some good. The good thing is, Larry, there's all these lightweights and super welterweights and all these. There's so much that can happen in those divisions. So I don't really care what form it takes, as long as we get the fights. I think the best fight in that division, there's probably a couple. I think Zepeda and Tank Davis would be a hell of a fight. But I also think Zepeda, I think Loma might outbox Zepeda. You're talking about styles make fights, as they say here. But if I had to pick one, I would say Zepeda and Tank Davis would be the best action fight out of all those. What a fight that would be. But as far as boxing ability and pound for pound, all that sort of stuff, that's Tank, Shakur, and Loma in whatever concoction you want to bring up. So still with Larry, Shakur can go fight Ryan Garcia or someone like that. Couldn't care less really about both of those guys, to be honest. I'm with you there, mate. I couldn't agree more. I'm not a fan of Shakur at all, and I don't really want to see him fight. I'd rather there's other big fights to be made, but as far as just natural ability and everything else, Shakur and Loma and Tank would be the best fights. But yeah, certainly not the most exciting fighter, Larry, and maybe he just doesn't deserve those fights based on his performances lately, but he is still the WBC champion. I don't know. Either way, some big fights to be made. All right, Tommy, I think ideally Loma wanted to accomplish the last thing on his bucket list, going undisputed versus Devon. That's why when he lost, he was so emotional, knowing at his age he wouldn't get a shot like that. Yeah, another good point there, Tommy, which is, again, another reason why he might want Shakur and Tank to fight first. And yes, it doesn't include the IBF belt, but the fact it's held by another Ukrainian. But what he might also look at, here's another scenario, he might be looking back saying, okay, all right, I'll sit out. No need to fight again this year, especially at his age, and he only fought back in April. So if he doesn't fight early next year, that's fine. Tank and Shakur fight, and Zepeda and Baranchuk fight. So if Zepeda beats Baranchuk, then if he does beat the winner of Tank and Shakur, then we get the two winners, and you get to crack at all 4 belts in 2 fights rather than maybe 3 fights. So I'm sure there's a method to his madness. And Negus Clemis is one of the best in the business, so I'm sure that's maybe what they're looking at. It's all strategic. All right, I doubt Tank's team wants a Shakur fight. He poses a lot of risk to his Zoe. Look how many fans Haney lost after 1 L fans jumped ship too easy today. With Alabi there, he isn't putting him at real risk. Another good point, mate. Yep. And that's what I said before. I'd be surprised if the fight happens for a myriad of reasons, mainly because of obscure shit, I would say. It won't be anything major. It'll be trivial stuff, but it'll be enough to derail the fight to the point where one of them just walks away. All right, Andy, Andre Ward has floated the Canelo fight over years for a while. That ship has sailed already, in my opinion. Benavides, Belunga, better, or maybe even Eubank for UK debut, and UK fans will see. Yeah, I'm with you there, Andy. I tend to agree. I know Shakur isn't the most exciting, but the fact is he's a champion and you have to deal with him. If you are confident in your skills, you should take on all comers. In theory, Tommy, I'm with you there, mate. 100% agree with you. Unfortunately, that doesn't come into consideration anymore. You should know that. Yes, the Tanks and Shakurs and all those types of guys should be sitting down, and the Devin Haneys and Garcias. Yes, let's get the best fights. No, the only fighters that are thinking that way are the non-Americans. Lomachenko, Zepeda, probably Baranchuk. They're the fighters saying, hey, we want to fight the best. They're just worried about who has the flashier outfit and who enters the ring second. That's all they're interested in sometimes. Anyway, Larry, I know I said it before, but in my opinion, Loma versus Zepeda is the best current fight. Okay, well, you win against my pick, but that's cool. Better than David versus Canelo, and better than Bud versus Boots. Style-wise, it would be explosive. Yeah, I think so. But for me, Larry, Zepeda is still unproven. I know he's beaten a few of the guys out. I get that. He's made mincemeat of everyone he's fought, but Loma's proven himself against very, very good opposition. Zepeda hasn't. So it probably looks good in theory. I wouldn't mind seeing Zepeda. I think if he beats Baranchuk, that's probably enough for me to say, okay, he's the real deal, and let's get him in with a Loma. Because, yeah, I just don't think his opposition has been that high caliber. So, the Baron, as I said before, the Zepeda Baranchuk fight and Tank Shakur fights make the most sense, and then Loma just picks both of the winners off, and away we go, and then sails off into the sunset. All right, Eminem, Amanda Serrano has vacated the IBF featherweight title. Surely Sky Nicholson unifies with someone else for the WBC and IBF. Why did she vacate the IBF there, Eminem? Obviously, she vacated WBC, which Sky won and has defended. I'm not quite sure why. Is it the same reason as WBC? They wouldn't sanction 12-by-3s. Maybe there's another reason. I think Serrano is going to fight Katie Taylor next, so I think that's the case. So The Sky Nicholson fight will have to wait. I'm not quite sure Serrano and Sky actually takes place. And I know Sky can puff the chest out and say that Serrano's scared of her. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just purely a business decision. Amanda Serrano has got the Katie Taylors of the world out there. She's getting on in years, so she's probably only got 1 or 2 fights left in her as well, although she did look okay on the weekend. So I'm just not quite sure she has Sky Nicholson in her sights. But if that is the case, then maybe she does fight the IBF and WBC belts, Eminem. Okay, going through there. All right, Tommy. The guy Jake was fighting, Mike Perry, couldn't take his hand out of his pockets and was a punching bag. Yeah, that's an understatement, Tommy. He was a punching bag, all right. His footwork and the way he held his hands. Oh, geez. They might get away with that in bare knuckle. You would think in bare knuckle they'd be even more tighter and have better footwork and everything because, there's fists coming at you, not just padded gloves. So, shocking technique there, Tommy. But Jake Paul wasn't much better. He has improved slightly. So, he's probably gone from an F to an E level fighter for me. What do you think of the 3 deepest divisions in Australia? Very good question there, Paul. Let me have a quick look. And I know this will probably put me further behind. Just bear with me here, guys. All right. I think... Where are we? All right. The national... We'll just do this quickly here, guys. I would think that... Geez, there's a super cruiserweight division in Australia now. And guess what? It has 0 boxers in it. I think light heavyweights is a good division with Connor Wallace, Lucas Miller, Paulo Acuso, Rowan Murdoch, Clay Waterman. The not so much middleweights or super middles, super welterweights for sure. Nikita, Ben Mahoney, Benjamin Hussein, Kyle Mazudia, even Dan Hill, Wade Ryan, throw those in there as well. So the 3 I would say so far, super welterweight and light heavyweight. Let's keep going down a little bit. And probably lightweight, I would probably think there. Of course, we've got Jalen Tate, Ibi Bella, of course, Yusuf Dib, Liam Wilson. So that's probably the next best one. Although having said that, featherweight's not too bad either. Sam Goodman, Dana Coolwell, Rocky Ogden, Vegas Larfield. So, but I'd still pick probably 135. So 135, 175, and 154 there, Paul. Only in this generation of fans could a fighter of that skill ever make enough money to feed himself. I'm with you there, mate. Jake has been training boxing for a decade now. His first fight was back in 2018. Well, I would think he was a little bit more developed than that, Tommy. Speaking of Jake Paul, nothing but a fraud, says Larry, but the man behind him is one of the most intelligent masterminds in all of combat sports. Nakisa Bidarian is a marketing genius. He's the real promoter, by the way. Okay. Andy, I thought Shakur versus Loma on Top Rank was more likely, but that's obviously out now since Shakur didn't renew his contract. Thought Shakur versus Apeta on DAZN was quite possible, but Oscar has no interest. No, he doesn't, mate. And the WBC obviously did order that fight, and Oscar De La Hoya said, well, we'll decide what we're going to do, not you guys. Larry, Jake is absolutely terrible. Always gasses in the second round. Thank God they got him some opponents who aren't real boxers, but hey, the new generation loves it and thinks it's real boxing. Yeah, good on him, I suppose. He's making money again. Jake Paul, still on Jake, would likely be biggest dollar fight for Opatai, but Jai in unification is definitely more interesting to me. For boxing fans, that makes sense. Andy, that Opatai tries to unify, but Jake Paul makes the most money. I just... Maybe we're wrong, and Jake Paul does follow through and actually steps. So he would get a lot of respect from me if he decided to challenge Opatai. I doubt that happens, especially when you've got Turkey Al Sheikh saying it was a circus. That fight on the weekend doesn't augur well for Jake Paul getting a fight with Opatai. I wouldn't have thought. What's that there? Authorised Seller Australia. Thanks, mate. Thanks for watching. Abdullah Mason is only 20, but I think he's cut from the old school. He's that bud mentality to work and not goof around in the club. I expect him to take over. Yeah. Still, I was going to say a little bit off Tommy, but he's definitely on the way. I think he's going to have to wait his turn for a little bit more. You throw Keyshawn Davis in there as well. I think they're just going to have to wait another couple of years to really get a crack at some big fights. Because when you've got Shakur, Tank, Loma, Zapeta, Bowenchuk in there. I mean, there's some big fights are all going to have amongst each other. So I think, and I don't think they're going to want to fight a Mason. Sorry, I'm thinking of Floyd Mason. Mason. I don't think Keyshawn Davis is really anything for them to worry about, to be honest, Tommy. I'm not impressed with him at all, but Abdullah Mason, yes. But you wouldn't see any of those top guys fighting him in the next 2 years. It just doesn't make any sense to them. Maximum risk for not much reward. All right, let's be honest. Devon versus Ryan was definitely diva versus diva. Props to them making the big dollars, though. Sick of that talk. Two, both out for a year, still dominate conversations. Yep, I'm with you there, Andy. Let's stop talking about them for another 12 months. Andre Ward with his 822nd hint at a comeback. That will materialise into nothing. Yeah, I agree there, mate. Mike Perry, another donut for Jake Paul. It was 10 out of 11 for Jake by stoppage. Extremely easy money it was, mate. What a joke it was. And Jake is terrible also. But still, marketing genius, putting on Paul versus a senior citizen. Nah, that's debatable. This is, yeah, look, is this where we're at with boxing though, guys, where the biggest fights being made out there are circus fights? Jake Paul, is it KSI, whatever it is, the Misfits and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know where we're heading. Fortunately, we've got guys like Turkey Al Sheikh who are now coming in and just starting to say, all right, enough with this crap. What's it going to cost to put these fights on? Let's go. Let's just get it done. None of this bickering and going back and forth. I'm just going to make you an offer you can't refuse, and let's just get these big fights done. I shudder to think where we would be if Turkey Al Sheikh hadn't come on the scene. That I just really worry about the future of world boxing when you've got all these circus fights that are suddenly the biggest fights in the game. Would we have had Usyk Fury? Would we have had Bivol and Beterbiev? Would we have all these cards over in Saudi Arabia? Yeah, I shudder to think where we'd be at if that was the case. Paul, I actually think heavy and cruiser are fairly decent in Australia too. Okay, let's have a quick look. So at heavyweight, you've got Chris Turzewski is the champion, Joseph Goodall and Justice Huni. I know you got Troy Pilcher in there. Yeah, I suppose I would think the only half decent fighters really, Paul, probably Goodall and Huni. I would think. Oh, Brendan Grutch with a bullet, by the way. How good would it be to get Justice Huni and Brendan Grush at some stage? Wow. Just looking. Oh, Liam Taliva, he's sort of on the comeback trail. That's probably about it for me, though, I think. The Cruisers, Luke Modini, yeah, well, he's definitely on the up. Ben Kelleher, probably on the way out. Jason Waitley hasn't fought for a couple of years. David Nyika, no, it says Queensland, but he's actually a Kiwi, so I think. But if he does fight those guys, that'd be great. He is, of course, fighting Blake Caporello. And that's, we got Austin Akuso, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know, mate. I don't know. I don't really rate those divisions as highly as the other ones. Still some good fights in there, but I think those other divisions are a little bit higher for me. All right, Larry. Jake is a marketing genius in terms of conning the public to actually believe he is a legitimate boxer. I hate the entire thing, though. You and me both. Larry, again, I had no intention of watching 1 second of it yesterday, but I watched it and went, geez, no wonder I don't watch this shit. Fair dinkum. Oh, jeez. But the crowd, Larry, they ate it up. You just see they had the Hawk Trois girl in there as well. That's how big the event was, Larry. They had the Hawk Trois girl there as well. So she's had her 15 minutes now. She better make the most of it, I think, because we don't really hear much about her anymore. But she was at ringside. She'll probably bring out a record soon, or CD, or whatever it is these days. Sure, she'll have a YouTube channel soon. But yeah, he is a marketing genius, Larry, but doesn't mean we have to like it. Batman says, sadly, a lot of casuals have asked me and my friends that follow boxing when the Tyson versus Paul fight is. There you go, Batman. There you go. They're not asking you when Canelo Crawford is, or Benavidez and Morrell, or whatever. Even Fury Usyk. This is what's wrong with boxing. Look, I think there is two separate paths. So if you look at it, that those friends that are asking you about Tyson and Paul, they obviously are casuals. So that if it wasn't for this, they probably wouldn't give one shit about boxing. So I suppose we've got to separate them. I don't think they take away from the hardcores out there. But those fans will never probably follow mainstream boxing anyway. So it's a whole different thing. We won't get too excited about them, but just goes to show, underlines what we're saying, Batman. That's the world we live in at the moment. It is crazy. Okay, Larry again. It's absolutely terrible to watch, but it makes big pay-per-views. Pretty sure, Chavez Jr. might be next, and if Paul beats him, they will say he beat a former world champ. That's what I said, Larry. And the son of a former, legend, and he's done this and done that. Mind you, his last big fight was 2012 against Sergio Martinez, but don't let that get in the way. It's 12 years ago. They'll build that up. And don't forget, Chavez Jr. got beaten by Anderson Silva. I think was he having his first boxing fight, which he should be embarrassed about as well. Maybe Chavez Jr. just doesn't care. Maybe he's just at the point of his life and his career where he just couldn't give a shit. He's going to milk his name for all it's worth, get paid his $5 or $10 million and probably blow that on nose candy, whatever the hell it is he does these days, and he probably doesn't care. He's just going to prostitute himself. And he says, celebrity boxing just demonstrates popularity does have a huge impact. Agree, though. Thank goodness for Mr. Turkey achieving bigger fights than we otherwise would get. Money talks. Yep, exactly, Andy. Even though Chavez Jr. is one of the worst champions in history, and now he's shot to pieces. But hey, Jake fans don't know the difference. Well, you're right, Larry. They're going to market it as Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., the son of the all-time legend Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., former WBC world champion. They're going to have the highlight of him almost getting Sergio Martinez out of there as running for his highlight reel. They won't mention that it was 12 years ago. It'll just be, hey, he's the former world champion, son of a legend. Get on board, guys. And, geez, Jake Paul, what a legend he is. And can you imagine what they're going to say if he beats Mike Tyson, Larry? Oh. I'll say it again, though. Everyone that says, there's no way, this is Mike Tyson we're talking about. This is Mike Tyson. He's not going to lose to Jake Paul. Well, he's 58 years of age. He's obviously had some health issues. And also take note of the Barry Hall Curtis Scott fight. It's a scary thing that we could have Mike Tyson almost becoming a meme because of Jake Paul, which is I just don't want to see. I just love this sport so much. And I would have hoped, I know I'm changing subject here, I would have thought or liked that maybe Mike Tyson would have thought the same. I know massive money, but Mike Tyson doesn't need the money. He's made all his money, or a lot of his money back anyway through his other things he has. What do they call it? The medical marijuana, or whatever the hell it's called, that business that he's in, his YouTube show, all that sort of stuff. He doesn't need the money. So I understand that he has a maybe element of ego, whatever it might be. But, they know each other really well. They're actually friends. So, I mean, it's going to be totally scripted, I would think. So, I don't know. I would have hoped that maybe Mike had a little bit more respect for the sport. He's always been one that's been obsessed with boxing history. If you hear him talk, he used to sit in the house with Customato, and they would watch the old film reels of Jack Dempsey and Rocky Marciano and all these guys, and he has so much respect and honor for the past champions. It's a little bit disappointing that he's now going to fight Jake Paul in a circus fight, and it's just for money. So, Mike, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. I'm just disappointed, mate. Let's hope it doesn't happen and we won't have to put up with it. I could easily put up with him talking about Julio Cesar Chavez, but not Mike Tyson. Not Mike Tyson. And no matter where you see Mike in boxing history, I'm sure you wouldn't want to see this if he does get beat by Jake Paul. I just hope it doesn't happen for that sake. All right. Chavez Jr. looked absolutely terrible. Batman, I'm with you there. And the guy who fought, was he another MMA fighter as well? I did look at his record. He was 0-1. I just thought he might have been some boxer they pulled off the street, but apparently he was an MMA fighter. And Julio Cesar Chavez, what was his name? What Ulysses or Uriah or something like that? Anyway, but yeah, it didn't look great, mate. Bill says, I've always believed a fit Ruiz can give any heavyweight hell. And if fit last AJ fight, he beat AJ easy, but inactivity is a killer. He let the best years go by. Bad diet and inactivity, in my opinion. Mate, he had it all at his feet, Bill. He'd beaten Joshua, and he could have easily done it a second time, but he didn't train. He partied, got beat easy in the rematch, and what's he fought a couple of times since? Let's have a quick look at Andy Ruiz, actually. I'll bring him up on BoxRec here. Let's have a look. The Destroyer. So he's 35-2. So the rematch with Anthony Joshua was in December 2019. All right, so he's out of the ring for 18 months. It was during COVID, though, so we'll give him a bit of a break there. But he was out for 18 months, beat Chris Arreola. Then he was out for 16 months when he beat Luis Ortiz. That was in September 2022. So he's going to be out of the ring for nearly 2 years. So since that fight in December of 2019, this is his third fight in 4.5 years. Just not enough. But he's just let his best years go, Bill, and maybe he just made too much money and didn't care, but disappointing. There's Peter. Jake Paul is an absolute spud. You forgot one thing there, though, Peter. You should have had spud in capital letters. He's a spud and a half, Peter. And glad we're not talking footy this week, mate. Isn't that right? The poor old Pies. They'll be back, Peter. Don't worry, mate. I got to say, though, the undercard was pretty good. That young kid, Ashton Sylvie, was savagely KO'd. Yeah, it was bad, wasn't it? Devastating loss for the young 20-year-old prospect. Now, was it the South? I think it was either a right-hand left hook or a left-hand right hook. Either way, it was a 1-2. The only good thing about it, Larry, he wouldn't have known anything until they woke him up in the corner. That's the only thing. He wouldn't have felt no pain. Those punches he got hit with, he was out before he hit the canvas. So it's a shame. Let's hope it doesn't affect him going forward. But, yeah, devastating loss, as you say there, mate. You don't like to see that with anyone. The only thing is it was clean. It wasn't like he took a lot of punishment and got really battered like you see in a lot of fights. It was just a boom, boom all over. So I'm sure he'll be fine. He'll come back. Remember, Amir Khan did it. It's probably the best example. Got caught cold. Nice and, well, I wasn't going to say it was quick and easy for Amir Khan because he actually got up and then he got absolutely nailed, didn't he? But, yeah, I think this one, the fact that it was a clean knockout, just a 1-2 all over, I think he'll be okay physically. It's whether he can recover mentally to be able to come back and put that loss behind him and get back on the horse. Peter says Joseph Parker is struggling to get an opponent, and I think he's improved enough to win a belt. That's the problem, Peter. He looks too good, and he's just that in-between guy. He doesn't bring much to the table, like apart from risk. So again, I mean, you look at AJ won't want to fight him because he's already beaten him in the past and probably doesn't want to go back over old ground. He's looking ahead at this stage of his career. If Dubois beat Joshua, then he would probably look to Usyk or Fury again. He's got the Usyk controversy, but also he's got Fury to look at as well. You put Zhang in there as well. Maybe, as someone said before, Andy Ruiz. Yeah, I'm just not sure where Joseph Parker's at, Peter. He deserves to get a shot at the world title, is what he deserves. But unfortunately, I just think he's going to be the guy that gets forgotten about. And you said there, he's struggling to get an opponent. No surprise. Who does he fight? Of note, that is. You've got Usyk, Fury, Dubois, Joshua, Zhang. Zhang got a fight? I'm not sure. But Ruiz have all got fights lined up. And Joseph Parker, unfortunately, is going to be left out in the cold. Let's hope it changes and he does get a crack at one of those big guys. But I don't like his chances, Peter. People have actually had tattoos of that Hawk Twa girl. Is that right? Tattoos. I wonder how they're going to be feeling in about 15 or 20 years' time, Andy, when people go, what's that? Oh, you remember? 15 years ago, there was this girl on the internet who said Hawk Twa. And let's face it, it was funny for about a week, wasn't it? I actually had a laugh for the first couple of times I've seen it. And then I had actually a bit of a laugh at all the memes and reels and that people made. I thought it was really funny, but I think she's a great character. You listen to her talk. She sounds like she'd be a really good girl to know and talk to and everything, and maybe party with. I don't know. Good personality and sense of humor and everything. But tattoos, that is just nuts. That is crazy. All right. What's it there? Batman. Parker versus Ajit, both on good form, similar to AJ Dubois. Two guys that have been winning on the Saudi cards, match them up. Yeah, it might be. Yeah, that's not a bad one actually, Batman. Is it actually happening, or it's just is that a suggestion? Yeah, let's just have a. No, I won't go through it now. We'll take up too much time in the heavyweight division. But I'm just trying to think of maybe they could get Hrgovic on the rebound. Maybe. There's not a lot out there for him, is there, really, when you think about it? Now that I've said that, I'm going to have to bring up the heavyweight division quickly in the ranking. Let's have a quick look. All right, so you've got, Ajit Cabello, Zhang, Effie Ajagba, maybe. Big babies are in play. Frank Sanchez. Yep, not a lot out there for him. Piccoli's fighting. Not many other guys out there. So, yeah, that's not a bad one there, Batman. But still not massive names, though. And he deserves better. Peter, I would love to see Jai beat the shit out of Paul. You and me both, mate. Again, I would give Paul his props if he fought Jai Bhatia. Or even got to the press conference with Jai Bhatia. I'd give him props. Maybe whether or not he pulls a hamstring and lead up to the fight and has to pull out, I don't know. But he doesn't want to fight Jai, Peter. He doesn't want to fight him. Batman or even Zhang versus Parker rematch if neither get a fight. Well, Zhang, I don't know. Well, does Zhang's team... See, Zhang's actually quite attractive to quite a few fighters out there. The problem is Parker's not. And does Zhang and his team look at Parker? I'm sure Zhang himself would want another crack at Parker, but do his team look at Parker and go, geez, well, he beat us very easily the first time. We don't have to fight him because we've just come off the Wilder win, of course. We've got some big fights that may be potentially out there. And yes, it probably makes sense to fight Parker, but he beat us so easy the first time. Why would we go back and have it happen a second time? Or run the risk of it happening. He's definitely got the style to beat Zhang, so why wouldn't Zhang say, all right, well, I might wait for Ruiz or the winner of Joshua and Dubois or whatever it might be. So, yeah, I do agree, Batman. That fight makes a hell of a lot of sense. I'd like to see the rematch. I've just got a feeling that Zhang's team will look at it and go, doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. And that's the problem with boxing. It's probably why we need the league happening that Turki Al-Sheikh was talking about, where you're ranked in a certain way based on results, and you would have Parker ranked really high and Zhang below him. So Zhang would have to fight Parker to go past him again. So I don't know. I'm not sure that happens anyway with the league, but unfortunately, again, I'll say it. I just think Parker is the one that gets screwed here, guys, and I don't like it, but that's the sport we're in. James Brown on the casuals and the Tyson versus Paul thing. I reckon it's the Tyson name that brings the interest. How many people actually watched that card yesterday? A lot. Well, I think a lot of people obviously bought the card, James, but they would have tuned in, maybe just before Jake Paul got in the ring. You would probably think. Yeah, you're right about Tyson's name, and the person that knows that better than anyone is Jake Paul. You know, if he beats Mike Tyson, hey, I beat one of the top 10 heavyweights of all time. How good am I? I beat this guy, who was the man and one of the most feared fighters of all time, and I beat him. See, I told you I was the real deal. That's, I don't know. It's a bit like, not as, well, this one's worse, but, Curtis Scott saying about Barry Hall, because Barry Hall was touted as what could have been a great fighter as a junior. Well, could have, would have, should have, whatever it might be. Living on that. Whereas in this instance, Paul is sort of doing the same thing with Mike Tyson. Again, I just hope it doesn't happen. I just hope it doesn't happen. But I've got a feeling it might. Anyway, we'll see. All right, Tommy, always appreciate your answer to the comments. Thanks, mate. No drama. I hope we get the Usyk Holyfield fantasy fight breakdown video. Yeah. I haven't had a lot of opportunity to do it lately, Tommy, all the dream fights and stuff, because it seems like every week there's some fights on. This week I'll probably do the Justice Huni fight on DAZN against Troy Pilcher. I'll do that card, or at least maybe, actually I'll do it all. How many fights are on that card, by the way? Was there 5 or 6, whatever it was? I might do that on Thursday. I think we've got some more fights coming up as well. We have Cole Mazudia and Tim Tszyu. Nakatani. But I'm going to do Usyk Hollywood fantasy fight, mate. I'm going to do the hypothetical 5 versus 5, Golden Boy versus Top Rank. And I'm also going to do, I've got a video, probably won't interest you too much, but the 10 best Australians never to win a world title. So I'm going to do that for all the Aussie fans and some other things. I normally like to do 3 things a week, Tommy. The Monday show, the Friday weekly roundup, and then it'll either be a midweek special or a weekend fight. So you'll see me 3 times a week if you want. All right, Larry, since both AJ, Usyk, and Fury is occupied, Zhang should fight the winner of Ruiz and Miller, at least if Ruiz wins. Ruiz-Zhang is a pretty damn good fight for my money. I like it, Larry. I like that fight. Ruiz and Zhang makes a lot of sense. The problem is, though, of course, Ruiz is, only a couple of weeks away, but he might be out for another year after that. So does Zhang hang around for a year? I don't think so. I think Zhang would want at least one more fight, if not 2 in between that. So if there was a quick turnaround, then it does make sense. So maybe before the end of the year, I think Zhang would hang around. And if it's maybe what might happen is that Zhang might wait for Ruiz, if he does win, of course. And maybe if that doesn't happen, then he might fight Parker in the rematch. But either way, some good fights again at that weight. Oh my God, the Jake hype will go through the roof if he gets a win over Tyson, even if Mike takes a dive. Casuals see the sport different when they are wearing beer goggles. Yeah. Oh, geez. I'd be sad, mate. I'd be really sad if we see a repeat of Curtis Scott and Barry Hall. I've said right from the word go that that is my biggest fear, and I think that would happen. I think Mike Tyson, they've only showed 10-second little glimpses of him on social media. We haven't seen him do a full 3-minute round and multiple 3-minute rounds or spar or anything like that. I just think Jake Paul will win. I think they would sort of script it. If you look at all these fights, they do seem they are scripted. I won't say they're fixed, but they're scripted, if that makes sense. I think in this instance with Paul and Mike Tyson, you would see a bit of a merry-go-round and clinching and holding, and one has a go, the other one has a go, and it sort of goes back and forth, and then maybe it's a draw at the end of it. Or maybe Jake Paul wins a decision, whatever it might be. So Mike saves a bit of face, but also Jake Paul can jump on the top rope and say he was better than Ali. So, all right, we'll go through. We've got a few minutes to go. And what do we got? Larry. I think Parker might actually fight AJ again. Okay, heard some rumors about that. Not terrible interested in that fight, although Parker deserves it. And 100% he deserves it, Larry. Parker deserves a fight with the best in the division. Now, I know that's not going to happen, of course, because Fury and Usyk are going to fight, and most likely there'll be a rematch. Worst case, there'll be a fight with Anthony Joshua. So those 3 guys are tied up for the next 18 months, or at least 12 to 18 months. So, there are some other guys out there. I mean, even if Dubois puts up a good effort against Anthony Joshua, he's a young guy. He's already shown that he's willing to get back in there and get straight back on the horse. So maybe if he comes off, if he doesn't get knocked out or whatever, he might come back and we might have a Dubois against Parker, or Dubois and Zhang, or Ruiz, Parker, Ruiz, Zhang, Ruiz, Dubois. So it just depends on how the dominoes fall in those particular fights, I think, Larry. But 100% Joseph Parker deserves a fight at the best fighters in the division. I mean, he's had 2 wins against Deontay Wilder and Zhang. And look, we didn't know that Wilder was probably worse than he's ever been. He was the favourite against Joseph Parker, and Joseph Parker clearly beat him and then won pretty much every round against Zhang. So if anyone deserves a crack at another big fight or 2, it's Joseph Parker. Who's that? Som, hello, Talking Box, just joining in. Thanks, mate. Thanks for joining in. If you've got a comment or question, put it in the chat there. Yes, Peter, he did lose to Tommy Fury. Wow. Laughable. All right. The 10 best Aussie fighters never to win a world title sounds good. Would like a 10 all Aussie fights we never got to. Give me some suggestions there, Paul. And I must admit, I didn't think I would be able to come up with 10 Aussies that never won a world title, but it was actually quite easy to do. So there's been some shrouded in controversy, but we've had some excellent fighters over the years. So I'm going to do that. Any other topics you want me to cover as well, whether not just Australian stuff, might be world, might be the 10 best fighters worldwide never to win a world title. That might be hard because there's been plenty of them. I think the Aussies we all sort of know, but whether it be dream fights or just topics in general, happy to go over it for the in between live watch alongs and these things. So 10 all Aussie fights we never got. Jeff Fennick and Barry Michael definitely comes to hand, and Jeff Fennick, Lester Ellis comes to mind. Johnny Famishon, Lionel Rose is another one. So some good fights out there. Even I know a lot of you non-Aussies would remember this, or even the younger Aussies. I would have loved to have seen even like Barry Michael against someone like a Tony Mad Dog Miller. Those types of fights. Lester Ellis, Frank Ropus, some great fights could have been made out there. But anyway, let us know any suggestions you might have. D-Style murdered women's boxing the other day, and I agree with everything he said. Paul, I 100% agree with you, mate. He did message me, actually, and I didn't know, because I got a message, and it said I couldn't resist, and it was actually the YouTube video, and I thought, what's he up to there? It was the day after the live stream, I think it was, that I did, the watch-along, and all it said was I couldn't resist with a wink, and I thought, what's he up to? And I watched it. I took the dog for a walk that morning and I just listened to it and I thought, wow. He hit it on the head, Paul. 100% he hit it on the head. And he actually did his research. I was just sort of flying off the cuff on the night, but he actually had all the figures and he went through the records and who was rated and who wasn't. And he made perfect sense. Look, in this day and age, Paul, I know we all get, up in arms about the equality and all that sort of stuff. But I don't give a shit whether you're male or female or in between, whatever it might be. I couldn't care less. It's boxing. And you're looking at it for what it is. And whether you're female or male, it doesn't matter. You should be judged for the whole thing on face value. And women's boxing, I know. Look, the lighter weights, I think D-Style might have said anything under 160, which I would probably agree with, is okay. I mean, even at 160, Clarissa Shields, Savannah Marshall, really, really good fighters. I know it drops away pretty quick underneath that, but that's a solid division. Then you look at the really lightweight divisions, and there's some great female fighters, sensational female fighters. So I don't know whether in this world of political correctness, whatever, the sanctioning body said, oh, well, if we don't have four belts, we'll put our belt into the mix with all divisions. Well, we might have people bloody picketing outside our offices or whatever it might be, but there's got to be a time to do it. And surely if the WBA or WBC, whoever it might have been, said, look, we haven't got a belt at 175 because there's just not the pool of fighters there to warrant it. Let the is it WIBA or WABA or whatever? I think it's WIBA, who were the first female belt. Let them put belts out in that division. We're just going to hang tight and wait till the pool deepens, and then we'll put a belt on the line there. But they've all just rushed out. And when you've got 21 active fighters registered and only half of those girls have actually got a winning record, and even some of those records, I think he said, Paul, were 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, and you got 4 belts. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I know a lot of people say, oh, I don't like women's boxing. I hate women. I like women's boxing. I like the fact they get in there. If they're two well-trained, ready to go women, I don't mind it. Would I go right out of my way to watch it? Probably not. But look, I sat through Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, Clarissa Shields, Savannah Marshall, Katie Taylor, Chantel Cameron. Who's a little minimum weight fight as they fought on the Liam Wilson and Valdez card. Great fight. Fantastic fight. But watching that fight the other night, I was embarrassed, as I said at the start, embarrassed for women's boxing, embarrassed for Australian boxing, and embarrassed for boxing in general. And that's just my feelings. I'm all for female. I know a lot of guys especially say, I'm not watching that shit. Well, I don't mind it if it's right. If it's the right fights. That Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor fight was awesome. And they packed out Madison Square Garden for it. Female fight. But when they put on fights the other night, just pretty much for the sake of it, I have a massive problem with that. So, but you're right, Paul. I agree 100% with everything you said as well. All right, a couple of more comments before we go. There's Damien Rochester. How are you, mate? Nothing about No Limit tonight. Jai would knock that, what hair is left on Paul's pet head. He's got to be on something, doesn't he? All Paul does is fight MMA welterweights. Yes, well said. Waters Harding, I like it. Fennick Ellis. Yep, good stuff. We might have to do that, Paul. Keep them coming. I want to, Tony Mundine, Dave Sands, Les Darcy. We might do that. The best fights that never happened. Oh, these are the ones that never won world titles. Yep. Well, Les Darcy sort of won it some. Technically he did, but he didn't, if that makes sense. He didn't really win it, but back then there was no sanctioning bodies, of course, worldwide sanctioning bodies, and he was recognised as the world champion of Australia, if that makes sense. The Australian body recognised him as the world champion. That's the way it went back then. I think that's the way they said it. Let me just have a quick look. I know we've got a couple of minutes to go. Les Darcy. So, where is he? Oh, there's a few Les Darcys in there. Maybe, oh yeah. So it was the world middleweight title, Australian version. That's what they called it. The world middleweight title, Australian version. So, but Tony Mundine, Dave Sands, Hector Thompson fought Roberto Duran, of course. Troy Waters, who fought Terry Norris, Simon Brown, Gianfranco Rossi. Very unlucky was Troy Waters. All right, a couple more comments and we'll call it a night here, guys. What's that there? Andy, love to see Parker get another title crack, but most likely AJ Triple D. So Dubois winner fights Usyk Fury. Yep, we'll see what happens. Eventuates though. I know everyone's talking about disrespectful YouTube punk. No one will ever hear me mention the Muppet calling 58-year-old Tyson is disrespectful or calling out. Yep, a YouTuber doesn't belong in the same suburb as Tyson. I'm with you there, Bill. Let's hope it doesn't happen, mate. The hardest Australian fight for Fennick would have been Barry Michael. Fennick wins, but cracking fight. I'm with you there, Peter. I think he would have beat Lester. This is Jeff Fennick, but Barry Michael, different kettle of fish. I think Barry Michael had the style, the toughness to actually beat Jeff. Don't tell Jeff I said that, by the way, but what a fight that would have been. The only time women should be boxing is when they say no to making the men's dinner. Well, Damien. Oh, geez, you're a shocker. All right. That's about it there. Thanks, The Greater Tapestry. Thanks for tuning in, mate. I really appreciate it. Well, that's it for this week's episode. That is Talking Boxing, July 22nd, 2024. Look out for this Wednesday night where we'll have the 10 the 10 greatest Aussies that never won world titles. And then we'll probably do, actually, we might have to do it next week because we'll do Thursday with the Justice Huni and Troy Pilcher card. So look out for that. The live watch along on Thursday night and then the weekly roundup on Saturday. So thanks, guys. Have a great week and we'll catch you next time.